Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for January 12th through 18th. This week I read 3 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 1 book, and we're in a different mystery location because Sunday, why not? I also couldn't decide if I wanted to eat more of this pizza for breakfast or if I wanted to film this video, so we're doing both at the same time because efficiency. First this week, as a buddy read with Julie from Pages and Pens, we read You Must Not Miss by Katrina Leno, and unfortunately this was a miss for both of us. This book is about a girl who has a very hard home life. About 6 months previously, she walked in on her dad having sex with her aunt, and this broke up her family, and then she got drunk that night and went to a party and fucked up things with her best friend, so her life isn't doing so well. However, on the flip side, since that event, she has found this group of friends who are actually very supportive, and there is a lot of potential there for really good friendships, as well as a potential romantic relationship. She spends all this time writing in this notebook about what a perfect world would look like for her, and because she lives in a town called Farther, she named that perfect world Near, just because she thought that was funny, and then eventually that world exists. Julie and I both thought the premise was really cool, but we just didn't like how it was executed and what this character did. For example, she got to the point where she's like, I'm just going to go live in Near by myself. I won't have to deal with any of this bullshit of my current life. And we're like, okay, go do that. And she's like, but before I do that, how about I take my teacher, who's only ever tried to help me, into Near and have something kill it. That sounds like a good idea. Why don't I do that? And we're like, but why would you? So yeah, sorry for the spoilers on this one. I usually try to keep these spoiler free, but there were just so many elements to this that we were just like, but why? But why? The next book I finished was another urban fantasy, and that was Sawkill Girls. I have no idea how it took me this long to get to this book because I picked it up in July when I was on the East Coast visiting my family and just never got around to it somehow. This is about a girl who's just moved to this island called Sawkill with her mom and her older sister, and she's kind of the warrior in the family. Her dad recently died and they've basically just moved house so her mom can work as a maid at this very big house on Sawkill. And as soon as they get to the island, weird things start happening. This could also be described as a horror because there are a lot of horror elements to it, but eventually there is a cult to deal with. Pizza. But eventually there is a cult to deal with, and there's supernatural elements, and I really enjoyed this. It was very atmospheric. This is definitely one of those books that was very cinematic, so I could see it as being a movie in the future. But at the same time, it didn't rely too heavily on being cinematic, and I really got to know these characters and really enjoyed them. Also, it was queer, so bonus. Also queer and leaning way more into the classical fantasy, we have Queen of Ieflaria. In this book, Effie has been traveling for 4 months to get to this kingdom where she's been betrothed to the prince there. Once she gets there, she finds out that he died about 3 months previously, so obviously that calls the wedding off. However, this kingdom really needs her because they have a dragon problem and she has brought all of these battle mages with her to help fight the dragons, so they still need to form an alliance. However, the king and queen do have another heir and it's a daughter, and in this world people don't really generally have a huge preference. It seems like everybody is pretty much pan, which is amazing, so having 2 women marry each other for this alliance is perfectly fine. The chapters flip back and forth between Effie and Adele, who is the princess, and up until this point she's never thought that she's going to have any responsibilities, so she's out hunting and drinking and that type of thing and doesn't really know how to run a kingdom, and is kind of scared by this thought that she's going to just have to marry this random princess that just showed up. This was kindly sent to me by Jean back when we did a book haul swap, and this was the book that didn't show up for a very long time, so it's not in my video that I did, but it was just so good. It is my understanding that it's the first in a series, and now I'm going to have to look into acquiring the rest of this series because I really liked these characters. I really liked the politics because they weren't too heavy, and the magic that just showed up out of nowhere was fantastic. This week my best friend and I also finished the first season of The Crown, which is just such an opulent TV show about the royal family. I'm learning a lot about that family that I never thought I'd know because I don't really care about the royals. And of course learning about Churchill, because up until this point Churchill had still been the Prime Minister and he just recently retired in the show. So I'm learning about him and about how there was this very famous painting of him that was given to him for his 80th birthday, and it showed how old he was and he burnt it. because that's a thing that you do. So I find the show fascinating because I also feel like I'm learning a little bit of history while I watch it. Of course, my roommate and I also watched some Australian Survivor. Somebody who I thought might go all the way to the end was voted off. I don't really know how to feel about that because I didn't see her actually winning because everybody seemed to be against her, but I thought she'd go a little bit further. I also watched the entire first season of the Netflix original AJ and the Queen starring RuPaul Charles. And then of course at least half of the drag queens that you've seen on RuPaul's Drag Race pop up here and there. This show is about Robert, who has been saving money all his life to open his own club, and he's just about to have that happen, and then something goes terribly wrong with that money. I'll leave that for you to find out. It happens in literally the first episode. On the flip side of that, his upstairs neighbor is a little kid named AJ, whose mother has been taken away and who's gone into foster care and escaped foster care and has just been living on their own and has been trying to acquire money and goes to steal money from Robert. Since Robert also has an RV and he was planning to take it on an 8-week trip just before trying to open up his club so he could get some extra cash, go to different places around the states to perform, as Ruby read. I probably should have mentioned that he's a drag queen. I just assumed everybody would know that was his occupation based on the title of the show and the fact that it's starred by RuPaul Charles. But in case you didn't notice, he's a drag queen, he's going around to perform, and he's halfway to his first destination before he realizes that AJ has tagged along. This show is incredibly heartfelt. These two characters learn a lot from each other. There are so many different topics that are mentioned throughout. There's a little bit of RuPaul's humor that's always personally grated on me, which is this like, oh, I haven't had a french fry since 1987 type of humor, and like the whole watching your weight thing, which is not a thing that I really like to hear about, but also it is a thing that performers do, I guess. So it's in there. It's just not my favorite thing, but other than that, there was a lot in this that I really absolutely loved, and now I'm just going to have to wait for the next season, whenever that happens. I'm assuming it's happening. Recently, I listened to I Let You Go by Clare Mackintosh, and then I realized that Clare Mackintosh has other books, so this week I listened to I See You. I think Clare Mackintosh might become my favorite thriller author because I highly enjoyed this. This is about a woman who is traveling on the underground on the way to work. It's her usual commute to go there and back, and one day she sees her own picture in the newspaper, and it's for this ad for this website called findtheone.com, and she's just like, well, I am not an escort. I didn't put my name forward for any dating service. I have a boyfriend who lives with me and I have children. Like, what is this? So that's the Zoe side of things. On the other side of this, and I love how these books are always at least two perspectives, we have Kelly, who is a police officer who is trying to get back into the force but is being given kind of the underling jobs because she did something previously that we don't know about, and basically people don't really want to work with her anymore. She also has an interesting past as well as a family life that we delve into, and what I really love about Clare Mackintosh is we really get to know these characters and then also all of their backstory, and it just comes out at such a perfect pace, and then things start to get real and you don't know who to trust anymore, and then there's twists, and then there's another twist at the very end of the book, and it just leaves it open, and you're like, but okay, now I need a sequel, but I don't know if that's a thing that's going to happen, and I don't actually know if it's a thing I want to have happen because it's just such a perfect way to end it. Speaking of ending it, that's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!